Hey guys, Ryan Steinelson here with Accelerate Marketing. Today I'm talking about artificial intelligence and how to make it work for your business so that you can spend more time doing things that are important for your business and less time doing things that are not important. Well, not that, getting and having an intake that is handled by either humans or AI is not important. It's actually very important, which is the reason why we use artificial intelligence to actually answer the phone to make sure that all phone calls are answered in 30 seconds, because that will increase the conversion rate. It'll increase the number of leads that you get, from your different lead generation sources, whether that's Google Local Service Ads or Google Business Profile, which my agency optimizes and has been optimizing for years now for different businesses. And, if you're not familiar with our company, it's called Accelerate Marketing. We optimize and make sure that our clients get the most out of Google Local Service Ads and Google Business Profile. We've been doing it for almost 16 years. We've got hundreds of 5-star reviews. And, I'm glad that you're with us today. If you have any questions, you can post them in the comment section. We do have a school community. It's at skool.com/local lead labs. You can see it down below the video, and you can text the word audit or just text anything to 619-304-5155 in order to engage with our AI agent. And, if you do want to join us, you can, I'm going to post a link to the StreamYard so that you can join if you're on any one of the platforms. That way you can actually see what's going on. You can join in the conversation, and we can even do a live audit of your AI, your artificial intelligence. If you have one set up, or if you don't have one set up, we can even set one up for you. It really doesn't take that long. I mean, it's not as long of a process as people think. And today there's, you probably saw it in the title and in the description. One of the things we're trying to do is to stop letting Google, Yelp, Angie's List, etc. Leads, go to voicemail. And I'm going to have S is on the call as well. S is going to join us here in a second to talk about this topic and other things that are going on in the voice AI world, or the conversational AI world. One of the things that we did put in the description is, the sub 250 millisecond tech stack that makes customers think a human answered. There's a lot of new technology out there. AI is getting better in terms of the voice. How to clone your best CSR's voice in 5 minutes. There is a way to do that. And then real-time analytics that slap you when your bot screws up. So there are ways to be made aware whenever the agent has a fringe case that pops up. So this is why we've got the knowledge base and fine tuning to make sure the AI agent is working as good as possible. And there is new European Union and US rules that will bankrupt sloppy AI setups, which is interesting. I have to look more into that. This is a new topic that just came up. And yeah, and the other thing is a memory loop. So now, and we can discuss this as well, because the AI agents can remember prior conversations. That's now a thing. And we can get into all these topics and anything else that you want to talk about. If you're interested in AI, join us, and either live or in the chat. All right, thanks. And I'm going to add S here to the stage. S, what's going on?
All right. How you doing?
Good. How's it going?
I'm good. I gotta cut it a little short. I got something at 2:30.
Okay.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, we talk about voice AI, and I think like that's the buzz right now.
Mhm.
But I think it'd be interesting to just kind of talk about the adoption of that and like how we see in different channels, like the reception that it has. And there is a thought that I kind of have about like a voice AI versus something on messaging or like a web chat.
Mhm.
Um, and this has kind of come up with a lot of our businesses in recent weeks, where, and I had a conversation yesterday that actually just made the point that you know the the kind of customers that are going to be calling into business versus finding them online and chatting, it's almost like that slice of people who are going to call a business going forward is smaller and smaller, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
You think about like the millennial and younger generation, they're like, hey, I want to be able to do 10 things at once right now, right?
Right.
And I do think they're not the people to be calling up businesses. Like I even think of, you know, I'm like the older end of the millennial, and anytime I have to call even one of our service vendors, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to lose half an hour. I might not succeed. If there's a digital option, I'd rather just do that.
Yeah.
Right. Um,
Yep. So the text-based option sometimes is a
Text-based
better
option.
option. Yeah. And
Right.
one that a lot of people are going to want to take, like a chat on the website. And for
Yep.
people that, there are options now with, speech to speech where you can actually even have the agent talk inside of the browser as well. So there are those options for
Yeah.
people that would like to have a conversation with the agent. But I think most people, like you said, I think they're okay with just having a chat or a text-based conversation to
Yeah.
get their answers quickly.
Because you think about businesses, right? Like you will talk with other people, like to have a conversation, right? To like learn something, to explore. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of people like, if they're contacting a business, they know what they want, right?
Mhm.
And I actually think a conversation like is fairly inefficient, right? Like
Yeah.
a voice one.
Right.
Whereas like if I'm contacting a business, I'm like, okay, what service did you provide? I have this problem. How much is it? Like I don't really want to have a conversation, right?
Right.
And I think kind of the benefits with AI really shine in in that medium. And also just think about like discovery, right? Like even with the LSAs, people are discovering this on like on their browser, right?
Right.
The very action that brought them to your business, right, is they were on a website. They were in the browser, right? And
Mhm.
I don't think like, I'll say anytime you have a medium change, you lose 90% of people, right? Like somebody's on a, you in a room full of people that's just looking up services, like they're not inclined to then enter a voice mode and have a conversation then. Like they want to keep on doing what they're doing, right? So they find you on web in the browser, and if they're able to chat with you in the browser, right, and get immediate answers, like that just seems so much more of a like a higher yielding channel.
Yeah.
um, because what kind of brought this up was we were on a conversation with like like a software provider for like local businesses, right? Like they manage a lot of the the software, the memberships, stuff like that, and they seemed a lot more interested in the web chat. Like when we had some voice agents that would try it out, they're just not getting the volume, meaning like these businesses, people don't call them anymore. The reason that channel is like not being served by a lot of businesses that just won't pick up, right,
Yep.
70% of the time, may just actually be a reaction to the fact that, hey, maybe 10 years ago a lot of their stuff was on phone calls, but now it's no longer that. And they're not keeping up on their end because the demand isn't there, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like even behaviorally, for like, where does it make sense, what channel to first put AI? It may, like, it may just be web chat, and then like a text, and then the voice one. um it's because the voice one, people, it's already handled in a way from the
Mhm.
business owner's perspective, right? They're like, look, I have my telephone number published online somewhere. Somebody can call me. If they call me, I'll answer and I'll talk, right? And so like then they're like, this is not my pain point, right? My pain point is really, okay, the world's gone digital. How do I attract more people, right? And by the way, if I attract more people on my web page, there's so many bots. Like anytime you put out a web form online, right? 80% of them is marketing people trying to sell you something, right?
Right.
And I think as a web chat widget, like that's where it shines. That's when you're like, okay, I can answer all 80 people. I can, weed them out. And, the 20% of people that probably fill out that form and you get it at an inconvenient time, like it was hard for you to follow up on that, right? And and again, there's a medium change. Like somebody fills out a web form, right? Like they prefer that medium. You immediately seeing that and calling them isn't the way they want to be contacted.
Right. Yep. I agree. I think that the most important thing is to make sure that people are comfortable with the way that they're communicating with you. And I agree that if you have a platform shift or a communication a shift in how you're communicating with them, that you run the risk of losing that conversation. It does become, in my opinion, much less efficient and also much more challenging in the beginning phases of AI to get the AI right with voice versus getting the AI right with text or chat. The challenge, as you and I have experienced, is just getting the chat agent added to the websites that all these people have. It's just getting it added correctly. And I do think, and what's interesting, and this is another thing that we've talked about many times, is, and I've even heard this from other agency owners, that when they add a chat agent, a true large language model, AI agent that has, that's smart, that's not just a bot that only responds based on, in the past, the bots only responded based on what you programmed to respond. With our agents, they're truly being operated by these large language models, whether that's ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever, Grok. And as those LLMs, the brains behind these agents, get better, the agents respond better. And but there are still some latency challenges there, although they're very rapidly becoming overcome. And the opportunity is, and like I said, I've heard this from other agency owners, that when a true AI agent is added to the website, that it increases the conversion rate from the website, because as long as it's added in the right way too, and there's a nuance to that as well, not just with a floating widget in the bottom right hand corner. It's like having it on the site as the main function. Even people are very reluctant, as you and I have seen, to adding the agent to their website to make it the main thing. They're so used to their forms and their opt-ins and everything that they've been used to in the past to get people to in their funnel. And that funnel now is the entry point of the funnel is a conversation, a chat conversation. And that's a much more elegant way, in my opinion, to actually have the conversation. For example, an immigration attorney that has a 7-question form to find out if somebody's qualified for immigration to talk to an attorney, those same 6 or 7 questions can be asked very simply, one after the other, instead of in a form, in a chat conversation. And then once that person answers those questions correctly, that person can then be transferred via very quickly to a intake person or a caseworker to get them worked up and to get them going further down the funnel because they've been qualified. And that's really, the job of any good agent, of any good employee for that matter. And, and that's what, these agents are. They're digital employees that are just as good, if not better than their human versions, because because of all the reasons that, all the things that you get with a digital agent. They don't take breaks, you train at once. And that's the thing that I would look out for if I was looking as a business owner to get an agent, is to make sure that it can be trained with a knowledge base, with a prompt, with fine tuning, and there are, now there's speech to text to speech, STS. Now there's speech to speech, which is very interesting. These agents can actually, before the speech had to be translated, it had to be converted into text and then back to speech. Now the agent can actually hear the speech directly and hear some of the paralinguistic, communication that's in the conversation inherently, that would give further context and tell the agent if the person's frustrated based on how they're saying their words, or how they're spacing their words, or the inflection in their voice. That's all now becoming a reality. And but if you just need to get a form fill and really just qualify somebody very quickly, you don't need all that. That's not necessary. It's just, somebody just wants to get qualified. They want to get their information quickly, and they want to see if they can, if they're a good fit and what the pricing is,
Yeah. And by the way, I think, I don't necessarily think these companies are resistant to like swapping out that chat widget. It's just they haven't seen better.
Yeah.
Right. Like everybody hates those chat widgets. Like I've even found myself behaviorally now, like I'll reach out to like other AI companies, right? Because like I do want to work with them.
Yeah.
And I find myself very quickly now going to the chat widget, just being like, what do you guys do? What's the pricing? Like, this is my initial screening of them. I don't want to navigate through your page to hope like I can navigate to the right page to get past all the fluff of what you say, especially, there's a lot of like websites are fluffy, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's AI written websites too. Like I go through some of those. I read 4 pages. I still have no idea what the hell you do, right?
Yeah.
And I find myself even behaviorally now, like if they're an AI company, and I'm curious about them, I go straight to the chat, right? Because like in pricing, for example, doesn't make any sense. I'm like, great, we'll weed that out. I don't, I think with the business stuff, everybody's just so much. It's more just, can you get the information you want from them? Can you do the thing that you wanted to do if this is the right fit, right? And that's really all that matters. I think any of this, I mean, I always say like holding AI to a standard that's above human is kind of silly, right? Like I get the whole sentiment thing and people would like it to become more human, but like realistically, like I mean, a lot of these are done by call centers right now, right?
Yep.
And like, is that person modifying their tone? Like if I'm agitated or my whatever, right? Like I don't want them to match my tone. Like in a way, I understand from them, like, okay, you're fairly robotic, you're doing this from a script, but like all I care about is the thing getting done.
Yeah.
And so I I do kind of push back on the whole, is it indistinguishable from a human? I'm like, why is that? Why does that have to be the hurdle that it pass, right?
Yeah.
Because the human, right now, the human's at 30%. Like if you mix in the times they don't pick up, and we're like, okay, well, the AI is 80% there. Like that's an improvement, to try to work on the 80% to 100%. Seems like a low return on effort type thing,
Yeah.
And I would say, like, look, we get comments from people that are like, hey, here's the intonation, and I'm like, that's not a problem we want to solve. Like, OpenAI will throw $1 billion at solving that problem, right? Like, why are we trying to kind of overlay this engineering on top? you know, but whatever engineering that we do on top is just going to be undone by the next model, right? And so it's almost
Yeah.
like, is it, you don't want to end up working on things that ends up being a feature of
Yep.
a tech giant. And by the way, because it's such like a common problem that
Mm-hmm.
it's not if it will become a feature, it's when it becomes a feature, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, then everything that we would do to kind of make that more human right now is wasted.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what is something that you think is important to do? I mean, you had talked recently to me about having a memory loop, where the agent will remember prior conversations. Is that something that you think is important?
I mean, I think so, but let's just say, 10 years ago, half of your customers came to you because of the digital channel, half called you up, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say
Yeah.
for most businesses, it's probably 90 digital, 10 analog, right? And for those 10 analog, there
Mm-hmm.
is this kind of, and there's certain businesses that are like less transactional, more relationship based, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that um, that ability to kind of remember previous conversations, right, does offer kind of a nicer touch if
Mm-hmm.
that's the channel that somebody prefers, right? Like I call you up and it's like, hey Ryan, or hey S, like how can I help you today, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that feels nice, right? And
Yeah.
especially if it was like, hey, are you calling about your service appointment, you know, and has that information almost like preloaded like a human, it's a nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for some businesses that might say, hey, look, we offer, you know, a high quality service, that might be more in brand with what they like to do, right? But in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of businesses where it's just I want more volume, you know, this is a nice to have, not necessarily a need to have, then something like
Yeah.
that isn't a high return. And I would say for businesses where like there's this workflow that happens, meaning they call in, they ask about something, and then you send them a document or you schedule an appointment, you know, like there are benefits to having that integrated in a way that like, the human employee does less, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
so I think there are kind of benefits to like the integration, but as far as like just the entry level AI of being like, hey, I mean, in some of my product descriptions, I'll now just start writing out like, hey, it's 2025. It makes absolutely zero sense for you as a business to be answering, talking to everybody that reaches out to your company, right? Like
Yeah.
it's almost like
Yeah.
you have a website, so you don't have to have a million conversations with people. They can go on your website and look stuff up, right? And if we kind of
Mm-hmm.
think about like the benefits of having AI, okay, it's available, it works 24/7, it replies immediately, it speaks any language. The only thing you're a little worried about is its behavior, right? And the language
Mm-hmm.
models are smart enough that you could pretty much say, hey, your name is Annie, you work for a lawn care service, and use that as a single prompt and not even describe what behavior that it should have, right? And
Yeah.
by default, it's going to be like, hey, welcome to, XYZ lawn services,
Yeah.
right? How can I help you?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's, you don't even need to
Yeah.
prompt, you don't need to give it anything. In a way, I
Right.
think it actually will embody what that employee would do better than any call service, better than any human, right? Because the human's always going to say, hey, look,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm an employee of yours now. I should tell the company line. Well, tell me what I should say, right? And not
Yeah.
almost have
Yeah.
that creativity that AI would have.
Mm. Yeah. So the AI it doesn't have an understanding of, what would happen if it doesn't get it right. So there's no consequences really in its own mind. And so it's a little bit more daring potentially and can would potentially be more creative,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's interesting. I mean, you're talking about like, creating a one sentence prompt basically. And I know that you've been in favor of that from the beginning. A lot of people are creating prompts in ChatGPT and, and they're long prompts. And I mean, you're in favor of giving the agent more flexibility.
Because you're like, hey, look, if you hired somebody, if you hired a teenage intern, right, who has never done the job before, right, you might feel that inclination to be like, hey, let me specify what you should say, right? But if you hired like a PhD or somebody who's been doing this something in your industry, right? You hire them and you let them go. Like they probably know the job better than you do, right? And I think that's where AI is nowadays, right? I mean, they do benchmarks. It's like it does better than like postdocs on a medical exam. It does better than recent grads of law schools, right? And so I think it's at that stage where it's almost a neuroticism that businesses have to almost overcome, right? I hired this employee, but now I'm going to micromanage it, and it almost makes zero sense at this point.
I see it every day. I mean, I just had a pool company that hired us to create a AI agent. It was I mean, they were fixated on one thing, that it started a sentence that with a sentence that was too long, like it was too long of a sentence. And I'm like, well, what's the end outcome? Is the outcome of the call what you wanted, which is that it's gathering the information, it's qualifying the person, and I know it's not saying the sentence that you want it to say, because Google is sending over that first sentence, and that screwed the agent up on retail. And so it said, it went into this longer sentence that it was not supposed to say, because it skipped the first sentence that we programmed it to say, and which was a very short sentence. And all the client was focused on was that first sentence. And I'm like, what's the outcome? And they're like, we think that this agent is actually having people hang up on it more often than if it didn't say that long sentence. And I'm like, I don't know. Let's look at the data over time, instead of making an intrinsic, assumption. We've got to look at the data. Yeah, it's an issue, but is it a game-changing issue? I mean, let's look at you got this big white sheet of paper and you got this little black spot in the middle of it. I mean, you can choose to go, okay, I've got all this white here. There's a spot, and we're gonna address it. At the same time, let's also address the fact that we've got a lot of white there too. There's a lot of good going on. So instead of just focusing on the black dot, let's focus on the whole thing, the whole picture. And I feel like there's a lot of that going on, where there's focusing on the little black dot instead of the whole page of what's happening, Yeah. And it's an interesting, it's something that I didn't really expect to see, because I thought that people would just be like, wow, almost like finding fire, like holy shit, because I thought that there was going to be a ton of people that were going to be like, oh my gosh, I am so fed up with training people. I know I am completely fed up with hiring somebody over and over and over again for the same job, and then having that person be trained sometimes by me, because that last person left without announcing it for whatever reason. And that's, I take that as our responsibility, because we either didn't train them right, but still, the bottom line is that we finally found a solution for that. And I would think that would eclipse, this little black dot in the middle of the white sheet of paper, but it doesn't.
Yeah, but then it's also like, I mean, my experience with that is that, like, because people find us a lot, right? So they've already gotten past that hurdle that, like, they want to do this, and as opposed to convincing them, like, it's just addressing a problem that they have. And so I think then the expectations are kind of very different. And I use it as a weeding out
Yeah.
process, to be honest, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I use the thing all
Yeah.
the time. Like, we're trying to identify the people who like want us to Sherpa them up the mountain, right? And by the way, mountain climbing isn't for everybody, right? Like, there is a risk
Yeah.
averse crowd that I'm like, it's better to identify them up front before we go up the mountain, right? Because if you're gonna, start
Yeah.
worrying about every little thing along the way, like, we're not gonna get far.
Yeah.
So, you know, and so I think I see it as more as a weeding out process, because honestly, like, there's enough people out there that are interested, and I know a lot of people will
Mhm.
throw up objections as a way to learn, right? Like, well, how do you solve for this? Okay, it
Mhm.
sounds robotic. It says all this. How do you solve for that, right? And I feel like those are more objections that people will do as a way to learn. Because, like, when people talk about
Mhm.
AI, like everything you read in the press, oh, it hallucinates, whatever. I feel like those people are just kind of like feeling out for something, like feeling for somebody to have a good
Yeah.
response to them, but also to say to them, like, yeah, that's a non-issue. It'll get solved. Like, let's think about the possibilities. That's what's interesting to us, is identifying those people that will think, like, yes, like, I want to go up that mountain, right? And I know that
Yeah.
there's going to be a certain amount of risk tolerance I have to take, right? And so I think it's more, more work getting people comfortable with new technology. And I always, like, analogize it to, if you hired an intern and you're the type of manager to nitpick the little things, right? It's more a you problem than it
Mhm.
is the intern's problem. Meaning, like, this intern could do everything, but if you choose to nitpick these little things, then, like,
Yeah.
then maybe having an intern isn't the right thing for you, you know?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I think that that's how, like, we kind of do these to identify the people that are curious about it, to think about the possibilities as opposed to the limitations, and say, hey, look,
Yep.
I understand I'm a reasonable person, and the limitations I know are going to be there, but in spite of that, how do we, you know, use what its capabilities are for doing something more interesting, right? So it's almost like
Yeah.
they have to have the growth mindset as opposed to the protective mindset.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that that's really the mindset that is best to go into the relationship with. And
Yeah,
did you say you had to go at 2:30 or no?
yeah,
Or,
yeah. I gotta jump in a minute.
oh, okay. Okay. Um, yeah. So, I mean, I think that, there's a lot that's happening in the AI agent space. Obviously, they're getting smarter. I agree with you that text and chat is probably underutilized, and everybody's talking about the new, the voice aspect of it. Really, the basic utilization of it and the functionality of chat is here to stay, even with voice, as long as it's got an LLM that's running it and not an old school bot, which we still see a lot,
Yeah,
surprisingly.
yeah.
Are you still seeing increases in your rankings for your clients when you add the agent to their website?
Um, here's the thing that's interesting with those clients, right? It's They typically don't even have a baseline ranking. Like, they don't have their search console set up, you know, and that's not necessarily
Yeah,
something we do, but I can tell from, like, the way
yeah,
they want to engage more, that they see an improvement. It's almost like,
yeah,
you always ask people how much website traffic is there, right? And then they're really good, like,
right.
they're not really going to tell you. And then you're like, how many people fill out the form, right?
Yeah,
And it's like they're almost embarrassed, because, like, it's a 1% conversion rate at best for those forms, right? 100 people visit your site, at best you get
yeah,
one, you know. So,
yeah,
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 it's a little bit of a, I don't need to know this and bring up this insecurity. Here's just something better. We can all agree it's better. Pop it in, you know. And maybe that's something, like, we do more for the people that we work with, is, look, you need the entry, like the taste of it, right? And let's just pop in the website widget for you. Like, we'll talk in a month if you're not convinced,
yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, these businesses put so little emphasis a lot of times on their website traffic, I think is what you're saying. And, therefore they don't even have, like you said, Google Search Console, connected to their website. So they're not measuring how much traffic they're getting to it. And when you do that, and unfortunately that makes it so there's no baseline for us to do a split test comparison with, or it makes it more difficult. But what you could do is you could run it without it for a little bit and then say, hey, I'm going to add this now after 2 weeks, and then see what happens. And even in a 2-week period of time, or even a week for that matter, just to get a little bit of a baseline without, and then extrapolate out a little bit for, the weeks following. And, I agree. I think that there's a lot going on there that we don't see, that Google's valuing that chat agent, and somehow they're identifying that it's there. And I think that that's really going to be a thing. That becomes more and more important here coming up.
Yeah, I think so. But I got to jump. Yeah. Ryan, always good to catch up and chat and philosophize.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks, S. See you, bud. Okay. So if anybody has any questions, you can text me at 619-304-5155. And we'd love to have any questions that you have. I mean, S has been doing this for almost 9 years now. By this I mean AI, setting up AI agents. He's talked with some of the top people out there, and that's why I really like him joining the calls. And we do have a DIY agent builder for you as a business owner or an agency owner. You can white label it. You can use the agent, the voice agent, like we talked about, as a chat agent on your website. It can take inbound phone calls. You can make outbound phone calls with it. This is for, Accelerate Marketing has an agent that it offers this, that. And by the way, just to create a distinction here. So Accelerate Marketing is the agency that I'm the founder of, and it's been around for over 16 years, and it helps businesses to generate new pre-qualified, pre-sold leads from Google local service ads and Google business profile optimization. And what we do is we connect an AI agent to those platforms in order to convert as many of those leads as possible and to get as many leads from those platforms as possible, because Google's aware of how quickly you answer the phone. And we have a separate, there's a separate DIY system. But if the main thing that we're talking about here today is, if you're interested as a business owner, you can contact us at that 619 number. We can help you set up your own agent, conversational AI agent for your business, and that will help you to generate more leads and convert more leads. And we've got some really good case studies that show that. And there's been many other businesses that you can see that now are starting to leverage conversational AI. It really just helps create continuity in your business, or consistency, because it will smooth out those ups and downs, because you're going to get more leads, and you're going to keep more leads, and you're going to convert more leads. And that's going to lead to more revenue, and hopefully even less expenses in your business if the AI agent's trained properly to answer those LSA calls. Because those leads are sent to multiple businesses at the same time. So if you don't get to them quickly, the other businesses are going to get those leads and you're not. So anyway, thanks guys. Let us know if you have any questions. You can go to our school community. Again, skool.com/local lead labs. It's free. There's all kinds of training in there. You can go to the classroom and get all the training that we have. And we'd love to see any or get any questions from you there in our community. We've got over, I think, around 300 people in the community now. So thank you, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.